Hello and welcome to this week's edition of Weather or Not. I'm your host Connor Freidhoff, along with my forecaster Kyle Eck. Kyle, it finally feels like winter after it feels like ages.
I know we've had a very warm end to the month of January. In fact, we were about 10 degrees above average here in State College, but just in time for the February to start and Groundhog Day, we do have a cold snap coming in time for our weekend ahead, so I'll have that coming up in my forecast.
That's all very interesting. Speaking of interesting, we do have quite the nature in the news this week. What have you got lined up for us today?
So as I alluded to earlier, I'm going to be talking about Groundhog Day, as well as the first sunrise of the year in Utqiagvik, Alaska. They've gone without 2 months of daylight, so it's about time for them to see some sunlight again.
Absolutely. And on my end, I'll be talking about the snow drought in New York City. They did get their first measurable snowfall today, so that's very exciting up there. And on the other end of the spectrum, talking a little astronomy, a green-hued comet will be coming in the approach of Earth on the 2nd, so some folks in the Northern Hemisphere will be able to see that. So without further delay, let's get right into Nature in the News.
After going without sunlight for nearly 2 months, America's northernmost town, Utqiagvik, Alaska, saw its first sunrise of the year on January 23rd. In just a 9-day span, the sun has gone above the horizon in Utqiagvik in the end of January. The town has already gained nearly 4 hours of daylight. By mid-March, they'll see roughly 12 hours of sunlight, and on May 12, 2023, Utqiagvik will be immersed in full daylight for 82 days until the sun finally sets again on August 2, 2023. The return of sunlight welcomes the end of long-duration seasonal depression for our friends north of the Arctic Circle, and in no time, they'll be enjoying the long-awaited midnight sun.
New York City has finally recorded measurable snowfall this season. In fact, it's been so long since the previous recording that the city nearly broke a record. The last measurable snowfall before February 1st in the Big Apple was on March 9th, 2022, marking 327 days since the last recent measurable snowfall. The record currently stands at 332 days, not too long ago, back in 2020. The city did, however, set a record on Monday. This year, New York City saw its latest first measurable snowfall on record, beating the precedent set in 1973. The same year, they set the record low for snowfall. Though some welcome the change, the concern once again likens itself to climate change. Temperatures also remain higher than normal for this time of year, in part due to a La Nina in the Pacific. Other cities in New York have also seen a downtick in average snowfall. This year, both Rochester and Syracuse are 3 feet under their respective averages for this time of year. The city has finally seen snow, but meteorological winter still hangs around for a month, allowing for some time to reach or even exceed climatological averages.
Are we in store for 6 more weeks of winter, or will we see an early spring? It's that time of year again for Punxsutawney Phil to come out of hibernation and give us his annual prediction. This February 2nd will mark the 137th year of the Pennsylvania tradition. Now, while it's said there has only ever been one Phil, groundhogs tend to only live up to 15 years, so there may have likely been many iterations of the groundhog through time. Groundhog Day isn't just a local holiday, it's become so famous that a movie was dedicated to it 30 years ago this month. This tradition is based on folklore. However, Phil did correctly predict an early spring in 2020, and late that winter and early spring was exceptionally mild across the Keystone State. If you're excited for spring to get here, don't hold your breath. According to the calendar, we still technically have 6 more weeks until the start of spring.
The last opportunity to see an astronomical phenomenon is fast approaching. A green-hued comet called C/2022 E3 will come within view of Earth on February 2nd. Its closest approach will still put the comet 26 million miles away from Earth. In order to have the best chance of viewing the comet, acquire some binoculars and travel to a place where light pollution is much lower, as the comet is still faint to the naked eye, despite its approach. A comet is often described by astronomers as dirty snowballs. Comets contain frozen gases, ice, and clumps of dust, giving them their nickname. Heat from the sun causes comets to have tails due to their surfaces eroding away. The tail itself can be millions of miles long. To spot the comet, astronomers suggest looking north, as the comet is positioned in the sky near the North Star, making it easier for those in northern latitudes to view the comet. C/2022 E3 may not even return after another 50,000 years, as the gravitational pull from the sun may just fling it out of the solar system entirely.
Regardless of what Punxsutawney Phil said on Groundhog Day, I think Friday is going to be a very cold one for us. We do have high pressure off to our west, and that means we see a very cold funneling of air from north to south. So those of us in the Keystone State, we're going to be feeling like single digits throughout the day on Friday, and even colder yet as you head northeast. I'm thinking some areas could see daytime highs near 0 degrees. But luckily, it does come with the way some sunshine, so that's going to be a silver lining. But our friends towards the Lake Erie and Lake Ontario, they can't rule out some lake effect snow showers. For the day on Saturday, high pressure moves offshore, so we stay cold and dry, but we do see some more in the way of lake effect snow showers to our west. So if you're traveling to the Great Lakes regions of the U.S., be prepared to run into some snow showers. However, luckily, it's not going to be too much in the way of accumulations. For the day on Sunday, high pressure moves out of our neck of the woods, and we get very mild. That's because we have our next disturbance moving into the picture from west to east, and that means our friends up in Lake Erie, they're going to be seeing a lot more in the way of moist-free precipitation, but mixed precipitation as well. So it does signal the fact that it's not going to be too cold of an air mass. We see mild weather behind that, moving in from west to east, keeping us dry, but also well above average to round out our weekend. But before that, here's our Friday forecast. 18 degrees, that's all we're going for on Friday. It's going to be very frigid and windy, so our wind chill factors are going to be below 10 degrees during the day. Overnight on Friday, we keep the clouds, we keep the winds in place, and our forecast low of 8 degrees, that means a wind chill of below 0. So if you have to do any outdoor activities throughout the day on Friday, bundle up or just stay indoors altogether. Throughout the day on Saturday, it's going to be a bit breezy throughout the morning hours, but we do get rid of some of those cloud cover, so we see some more in the way of sunshine and higher temperatures slightly. Our forecast high is about 25 degrees, which is about 5 to 10 degrees below average for this time of the year. For Saturday night, we do see some more intake of that cloud cover from southwest to northeast ahead of our next disturbance, so we do see a low of 22 degrees. In fact, this is actually near our average low for the year, but we're going to be rising in temperatures throughout the night with the influx of cloud cover. And then by Sunday, we see a very mild conditions with a high near 45 degrees. This is about 10 to 15 degrees above our average high for the year. Coming up next in our show, Where Has the Sun Gone? Is the feature by Dennis Khrulov.
If you have been curiously thinking that it has been rather cloudy here across central PA lately, you are not wrong. As you can see, it is cloudy even when we're recording this. Usually over winter, clouds dominate the sky conditions for several reasons, which will be later explained in this feature. However, this past month has been unusually cloudy. Over the last 30 days, or out of the 744 total hours in January, only 88 of those hours were considered quote-unquote clear, or there were no clouds observed by the weather data site. So, in this feature, I'll talk about why it has been so cloudy and why these clouds have been sticking around for so long, and will we see any improvement heading into February? The graph from the Iowa Environmental Mesonet gives a good visual look of how expansive the clouds have been over the month of January. The color blue is indicative of clear skies, and the color gray is of overcast skies. By looking at just this graph, you can easily distinguish on how cloudy this month actually has been, with a lot more gray compared to blue. So what leads to all the clouds in the winter? First of all, let's take a look at how clouds developed in the first place. Let's take a look at the life of a water parcel to begin. So starting from the surface, as the sun's energy helps to heat up the ground, the process of evaporation begins. These water parcels, better yet known as cloud condensation nuclei, transform into water vapor, and then they begin to rise into the atmosphere. As the parcels rise to the atmosphere, these air parcels begin to cool, as well as the pressure begins to lower, rising throughout the atmosphere. Once reaching a certain height, the temperature equals out with the dew point, which is also known as the point of saturation. This is where the process of evaporation turns into condensation. A cloud begins to develop once the parcels of air cool lower than the point of saturation. is where the water vapor were condensed into a cloud droplet. The cloud droplets continue to grow as the process of condensation and evaporation rapidly continues, as the atmosphere is constantly in process. So once we have a cloud, why do these clouds persist so long over our state, especially during the winter months? Well, first of all, we have Lake Erie just to our northwest, which helps to provide plentiful moisture for cloud development. With a constant northwesterly wind throughout the winter months here in the state, the moisture is easily transported here. With plentiful of elevation across our region, the air and moisture is forced to rise, which easily helps to lead to the cloud development phase as air is forced to rise and condense into clouds. Secondly, the sun angle plays a large role in how quick clouds erode. During the winter, the sun angle is usually considerably lower than the warm season months, such as July. In the summer, the sun angle is much higher in the sky and for a longer duration, which helps to warm the surface and erode the cloud layer. Compared to winter, the sun angle is much lower and is in the sky for a much shorter period of time, which prevents the cloud deck from being eroded away. In general, the entire weather pattern during the winter months is against our region from seeing mostly sunny skies, unfortunately. The lack of sunshine leads to also a lack of vitamin D across people, which can lead to negative health effects. The lack of sunlight can lead to a mood disorder known as seasonal affective disorder, or the acronym SAD. Some of the symptoms of this disorder can come in the form of lack of energy, difficulty concentrating, feeling hopeless, and even depression. Additionally, there is even potential for a greater chance of contracting illnesses, such as the cold or flu, with the seasonal affective disorder. So the best way to beat SAD is remaining active, eating healthy, and soaking in as much sun as possible when the clouds are gone. As we head into the last month of meteorological winter, here's to hoping we see more sun opposed to these clouds we've been seeing in January.
We start our weekend on a quite wintry note, but it's going to be feeling a lot more like spring by Sunday. By Friday, it's going to be mainly cloudy, but what's not detailed in the forecast is that wind. It's really going to be getting us with a high of 18 degrees. We may as well be feeling like single digits. So if you have to head outdoors, make sure you bundle up or just altogether stay inside because it's going to be feeling very uncomfortable, especially Friday night. With those wind chills in place again, it's going to be feeling like sub-zero temperatures. By Saturday, however, we see a bit more in the way of sunshine and a bit less wind, so our temperatures are going to be able to bump back up. But again, we're still going to be about 10 to 15 degrees below average for much of the Commonwealth. But by Saturday night, we see much more in the way of cloud cover, so our temperatures don't drop too much. And then by Sunday, very nice, feeling a whole lot more like March with a high getting into the middle 40s. That trend of mild weather is going to be continuing into early next week, but clouds are going to be back into the picture. But again, look at this. By Tuesday, we'll be feeling like 50 degrees. So again, it's going to be feeling a lot more like March than early February. Our next weather system moves into the picture by Wednesday. A few rain showers are going to be in place. Again, no snow in the forecast. Temperatures do continue to drop throughout later portions of next week, but yet again, feeling well above average. By Friday, our secondary system is going to be moving into our area with a high near 45 degrees.
Thank you very much for the forecast, Kyle. Now let's get into the answer of this week's Weather Whiz Quiz. And since records began in the 1880s, what winter saw the least amount of snow in New York City? Was it 55-56, 72-73, 89-90, or 06-07? The correct answer is 72-73. I could not have a winter where there's barely any snow. I love skiing. I love the aesthetic. The winter's really just my season.
I'm kind of the opposite. I'm someone who loves spring, so I'm ready to get the calendar changed to March already so we start feeling warmer again.
Well, you probably love these conditions then.
Of course.
Well, thank you very much for tuning into this week's edition of Weather or Not. We'll have another show for you next week, same time, same place. Thank you for watching.